A good contract is worth its weight in gold. Are you a creative entrepreneur who contracts your services to others? Well, listen up, because this is for you. The Smithers Law Group has created 14 master contracts specifically for creative entrepreneurs. These contracts are industry specific, they're fully customizable, and you only pay a one-time fee. This is so much better and more affordable than speaking with an attorney who's going to charge you an hourly consultation fee, and it's so much more secure than just Googling up your contract and hoping for the best. Find your fully customizable and industry-specific contract at stulawgroup.com. Search for the contract link. And don't forget to tell them that I sent you.
If all possible, have a co-founder, at least one other co-founder. Because it's mentally, physically, spiritually, all of the above, taxing to carry that load by yourself. Again, that has been our secret weapon, the fact that it's 5 of us, right? I can't even imagine trying to do this all on my own. And then again, trying to explain to family members that you're doing this and why you're doing this and doing the social media, doing this. It's just too much. So if you can find a co-founder, at least one other person, at least, right? Just to carry the load, somebody that's in line where you would like to take the company.
Welcome back to Impostrix Podcast. My name is Whitney Knox-Lee, and I'm your host. This is Season 3 of Impostrix Podcast, where we are focusing on validating small business owners of color, entrepreneurs, and folks who unfortunately are navigating employment discrimination in their workplace. Impostrix Podcast always puts folks of color first. So all of our guests are people of color who are sharing about their personal experience or their learned experience. So buckle up, let's go. Welcome back to Impostrix Podcast. This is Season 3. I am looking forward to this conversation as usual, but I've actually been stoked about this upcoming conversation for quite a while because I knew when I launched Impostrix Podcast that I wanted folks from Black Coffee on the show. And I actually took my pictures for the podcast at Black Coffee. And I don't know, it was the place where I felt most at home, most loved, which is saying a lot because it's Atlanta. There's lots of Black spaces in Atlanta. I've come across several more since then that I also love, but Black Coffee has its own vibes. And when we're done with this conversation, you're going to know why. So I am joined today by Leonard Lightfoot, who is the CFO of the Black Coffee Company, located here in Atlanta. Leonard, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much. That was a very warm and pleasant intro. Definitely appreciate it. First and foremost, I want to thank you for allowing us to be on your platform. It truly means the world to us to have this opportunity. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So today we're going to talk all about Black Coffee. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship. We're going to talk about this business and how it came to be. But before we jump into that, I want to know more about you. So can you tell our listeners, who are you? What are the identities that you're bringing to this conversation as we talk about Black business? This episode airs during Black Business Month. Who is Leonard Lightfoot?
All right. Well, hello, world. My name is Leonard Lightfoot. Born and raised in Los Angeles, California, right in the heart of the city, South Central. So that comes with a lot of culture and experience. Went to Xavier University, Louisiana for undergrad. So down in New Orleans, again, very rich in culture and history. Then I took my journey down to up to Michigan, culture shock. Went to grad school there. Got my master's and PhD in electrical engineering. So that's kind of my formal background, education-wise. But in terms of the Black Coffee Company, started in 2018. But before that, the journey started way before that. Let me give a shout out to my other co-founders, not just me. There's 4 other co-founders, Mr. Jamin Butler, Christopher Bowden, Gino Jones, and Brandon Cole. We all went to school together down at Xavier University, and that's where our bond and friendship actually grew. Jamin myself and Gino all actually went to high school together, so I've known them for
Oh, wow.
decades, right?
Wow.
Yeah,
Y'all
we
are
all went to,
brothers.
yeah, we are brothers, right? And but it wasn't until 2015 we took a trip to Motown Museum and learned the story of the Gordy family and how they put their resources to launch Motown. It was really eye-opening because during that time at Motown, we was just kind of going in just to kind of see the studio. And when they dropped that gem on us, we looked at each other like, man, we've been brothers this whole time. We never put our money together to invest. We put our money to get into a club, put it on the bottle, those sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
Those sorts of group economics, but not to actually truly invest. And so we was really inspired by that trip. And afterwards, we got on a conference call. This was before Zoom was, Zoom, right? It was taking advantage of
Mm-hmm.
the early beta versions of Google, right? Google.
Mm-hmm.
And we was like, we should do something. And the idea was to actually create an investment club. And we pulled our resources together, like started very small, uh, initially just investing $50 a month into the pool, and then we'll just take the weekends to to learn about the stock market because none of us
Mm.
had any experience into the stock market at the time. So we just kind of treated it like a homework assignment. Every week we go research a company or a particular sector, and then report back to the group and say, "Oh, maybe we should invest into this." So we got extremely lucky. We were super early investors into like the microelectronics, Nvidia, and Tesla. So,
Mm.
as you would imagine, we saw like some passive success in that, and we was like, man, we should take this energy to create a company. What we realized by investing initially, pulling the money together, again together, like every other week, talking about the stock market, that we became, I call the term intimately close, or financially intimate, close,
Mm. Mm.
financially
Mm-hmm.
intimate, right? Because during these times where we're spending together, we share about our experiences with money, like how do you buy a house, how do you get a loan, how you purchase a car. I got the student loan debt, like how you guys navigating through this as we're progressing through our careers. And so we was like, man, we should create a business, right? Centered around what we all kind of felt we had a passion for, which was community. But at the
Mm.
time, we initially just had ideas, fresh out of school. I was a math tutor, so we're thinking really academically, educational focus initially, or maybe do some sort of app around that. And we were just throwing ideas out. And then one day we was on a call, like we are today, right? We was drinking coffee, right? And the idea came up as a joke initially, but then we was like, wait, I just started drinking coffee not too long ago, and I started noticing like the money around it, right? I'm like, Starbucks line, it was through
Yes.
the roof, right? Like I never paid attention because at first I wasn't drinking coffee, so I didn't really wasn't tracking the how busy it is. And then I'm in the airport, like, man, this line is crazy. Like,
And
and then
especially if you're here in Atlanta, Starbucks line in the airport, please. You'll be waiting 30, 45 minutes.
yes, it is crazy, right? And so he was like, well, it might be something to this. Let's just treat it like we do our research for the stocks. We went, took it as a homework assignment, realized it's $1 billion industry. Um, but what really truly resonated with us was that the fact that the coffee plant originated in Ethiopia, and that was just
Mm.
mind blowing to us. Because considering the first thoughts when you think of coffee, you don't really think of us, right? In terms of having that representation, and we took that as like a sign, like, oh, we need to sort of like reclaim this industry, right? And spread the message that where coffee truly comes from. And so we was like, all right, coffee it is, but we didn't know anything about coffee.
Just that you liked it.
We liked it, right? Being an engineer, I went down this rabbit hole, right? Like this thing, my first experience with coffee was just the office coffee, which is horrible. But then I got my hands on some specialty coffee, and I'm like noticing the different flavor profiles as the temperature cooled, and it was just intriguing to me. So I started doing the research and finding out how it's grown and how it goes from seed to cup and how it's grown as like a cherry pit. And I'm like, man, this is really, really interesting. And so we decided to name the company. This is 2018 now. We launched a black coffee company with no coffee beans, but just a name and a social media handle, and
Okay. And a dream, right?
a dream. We got the domain, um, and our first product was actually this woke mug here. It wasn't even coffee. It was a play
Mm-hmm.
on word, given the caffeine effects of coffee and the word woke. Um, that's when Black Panther came out. It was just all these things lined up, right?
Oh,
We launched it
yeah.
around that. And so this was the first product that we had on our website. We was like, well, let's just see people buy this mug from us. Of course, initially you get all the questions, like, what are you guys doing? So
Yeah. Yeah.
and um, and so we was like, create the social media handle, create the website, had the woke mug on there, got some sales, got some interest. So it's like, well, we maybe onto something. 3 months after we launched, we was able to work with a roaster that was willing to work with us because
Mm.
before this, we like pitching everybody, and they're like, no, we don't want
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
help you guys, or not necessarily help, but they didn't take us serious, right?
Okay.
And the roaster in Dayton, Ohio, he was like, yeah, I'll work with you guys. I'm learning how to roast myself. It's like, cool, let's just grow together. And so we secured a coffee roaster to partner with to launch the coffee company. Started selling coffee beans online. Bob Hawk there.
Wow. Hey, y'all. So let's switch gears for just a minute. We talk so much about empowerment of folks of color on this show. And now I want to take a second to talk about our legacy. It's so important that as we're out here doing our thing and making that money and trying to be the people that we want to be for our communities and families, that we get our estate plan together. And I know estate planning can be overwhelming. We've got your back. Our team is here to guide you every step of the way. Wills for the People is an estate planning practice that prioritizes creating and advancing generational wealth, particularly within families of color and middle-class families. This is because it's so important that we just get started. So, what do you want your legacy to be? And what steps have you taken to ensure that that happens? Take those steps with Wills for the People, where intentional planning meets transformative results. Visit our website for your free consultation at willsforthepeoplega.com. Mention Impostrix Podcast and we'll give you 10% off of your package. All right, I'll see you over there. Let's get back to the show. Wow. Okay. So it started, so the actual coffee part about it
Mhm.
started with online sales.
Online sales, selling coffee beans online. Um, and then as soon as we started doing that, right, we was, very paying very fine detail to all the customers, right? Writing
Yeah, yeah.
notes, um, following up with them, trying to get their experience with the coffee. And the next question was like, okay, what about K cups? Because
Oh, yeah, yeah.
not everybody was into like, grinding their beans and using the coffee maker. They like convenience. It was like, okay, we just take that as a note of room of growth. And the second question was, I don't drink coffee. I only drink tea. I was like, okay, we got to add more products to our offering. And then the third question was, when are you guys gonna have a coffee shop? He's like, whoa, we just started.
Right, right. Can you give us a second? But look,
Exactly.
I'm with those people though, because I'm like, okay, you the black coffee company. So where can I go to drink your coffee?
Exactly. So we took these as areas that we need to grow. We would just keep a mental track of how often and how frequently people will ask us these questions to kind of gauge what should be our next focused area. And with that, we just decided it's only so much you could do online. They need to
Mm-hmm.
physically see us in terms of brand awareness. So we did our first pop up in June of 2018.
Okay.
Um, Ironically enough, it was like a fashion show in Hollywood in the evening. It was like, is
Okay.
does coffee fit here? Right? That's what we was kind of thinking. Like, does coffee? Because I'm still learning the coffee industry and how people consume it.
Right.
And I'm like, this thing starts at 5. I don't know if anybody's gonna be like, why are these guys here trying to offer us coffee? We wasn't even selling it. We were just offering it. And people just gravitated to it. They was like, this is
Mm-hmm.
like perfect. It gave them an alternative versus, they don't have to have alcohol. They can have something kind of
Yeah.
chill in the evening. And it was just so um, welcoming. It was like, oh, we on to something now, right? A few
Yeah.
months after we started the coffee company. And then from there, we was like, we got to like replicate this because we're all geographically in different locations. I was in Ohio at the time. Jamin and Gino was in Los Angeles. Brandon was in Seattle, and Chris was in Atlanta. So we was like, let's just get some material, and let's just do pop ups wherever city we're at. Just grow the brand. And so that's what we did. That was our
Wow.
strategy going into 2019. We was calling ourselves the pop up kings in farmers markets, whatever. We just put up
Yeah.
a table, serve coffee, and it was working, right? We slowly just started to see increase in sales, started to see more engagement with the social media, and then we knew 2020. We was like, man, we're going to try to target these big places, South by Southwest. We're going to just try to target all these places, and then COVID hit, and then it just like changed the whole strategy. But we was
Mm-mm-mm.
fortunate enough that year and a half or almost 2 years before COVID hit, we learned how to actually move coffee through e-commerce really, really well in terms of packaging, getting the orders out, the labeling, all of that. So when the sales went through the roof when COVID hit because people couldn't go outside. And
Mm.
so we was already positioned, whereas a lot of businesses was already trying to get to online. We was already there. And so we just was able to take advantage of those coffee sales. And so sales went through the roof. We're panicking, trying to figure out how to like get all these orders out.
You gotta keep up.
And yep. And in June of 2020, Chris, um, he's in Atlanta, had the opportunity to do a pop up at Killer Mike's swag shop.
Ah, okay.
This is right
Okay.
in the middle of the pandemic. George Floyd, all of this stuff is
Yeah.
going on. And Chris initially was hesitant just because, I mean, health reasons and it's a lot going on at the time. And we was like, I think it'd be a good look. Just go. And he was like, all right, I'll put together a team. And he braved enough. He went up there, being safe, wearing masks. Did the pop up. Got a nice picture with Killer Mike, but didn't think nothing of it. Right, just cool photo op. Thank you for coming. Appreciate you guys coming out for the pop up. And then a few weeks later, we get a DM on on IG from a developer in Atlanta saying, "Hey, you guys are cool. You guys be interested in opening a coffee shop in Atlanta?" This is like nobody pays attention to it.
Wow. And
Nobody pays
like
attention.
at the beginning of the pandemic, when
Yeah, this
like
is like
nobody's interested in opening nothing.
that exactly. This is July, right? Like nobody's like, and we just thought it
Wow.
was spam. We thought it was spam, so we ignored it
Yeah.
because it was just a cold DM, right, from somebody that's not following us. Um, and then Killer Mike jumped into the DM. It was like, "Hey, my developer friend, I saw you guys at the swag shop.
Like, look, I
Like,
sent this guy to
look,
you. Why didn't you answer?
exactly." He was like, "Oh, okay." So he's like, "Okay, let me go take the call, right?" And Chris again, he went to go visit the location, and we were looking at each other because, like I said, now I moved. I'm in DC. Jamin and Gino's still in LA. Brandon is in Seattle, and we got a video tour, and it's like just
Wow.
four walls, right? It's nothing in there, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And they're
yeah.
like, yeah, you guys will be great. The community wants a coffee shop here, and we looked at each other. It actually was Jamin's wife, Erin, who said, "Fellas, I think this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You guys got to take it." And we was like, we got that blessing, and we was like, all right, well, we signed, and we was running. Um,
Wow.
Jamin relocated his family to Atlanta to help Chris. Them two helped build out the coffee shop. Um, and in December 2020, I don't even think we had anything, but we hosted. Oh, we actually got our sign on the building, and to celebrate that, we had a pop up like outside of the coffee shop because we didn't have anything inside. Like the least we can do is just serve coffee because it's not nothing over the top. Don't have to super explain it. Everybody understands what coffee is. And it's like let's just do a pop up in front of our coffee shop and kind of let people know that we're here because a lot of people was like interested, like what is that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so that was just to get our feet on the ground running. And then we spent, the next 6 months or so building it out, raising funding, which we'll probably get into next. But yeah, we spent 6 months or so building it out, and then Juneteenth of 2021 we had our opening. Like, we didn't have
Wow.
much. We just had counters, because at the same time we're still raising money. So we're not
Yeah.
able to like have all the equipment up front, and we was like, we could just turn on lights one day a
Wow.
week. And so we just picked Saturday, bought a coffee maker from Walmart. It was like,
Oh,
we could,
Lord.
we could just serve coffee. That's what we're here for, right?
Yes.
And that's what we did. For the first few weeks, we was open one day a week on Saturday. And that was just to get people to stop by and
Mm-hmm.
let them know. Because I mean, it's like I said, it's not something over the top. We could easily serve coffee. You don't need anything fancy at the moment, just to kind of show that we're here. And then over time, as we raise more capital, we got more fixtures. We got the fancy espresso machine, um, and we started opening more days a week. And then you fast forward to today, we're open 7 days a week, got a full staff, and do all the fancy espresso drinks. Got
The light
the
skin Keisha, that's my
Keisha.
favorite. That
Yeah,
is
got
my
the
favorite. Okay, so yeah, the light skin Keisha, it's an espresso, it's an iced latte that has lavender. Does it have honey? Or
the
not
honey
honey,
drizzle, honey drizzle,
yes, yes,
and
and vanilla.
vanilla. Yep, you got it.
Yes.
You got it. Yep,
Every
you get
time
a
I go, light skin Keisha.
yeah, you get a iced or hot. So it's your milk of
Mm.
choice. Mm.
So I really appreciate this history, um, for so many reasons. You talked about how you didn't let the fact that y'all didn't have nothing stop you. And as someone who is in the process of starting businesses right now, I've got a consulting business and I've got a law firm or a legal practice. We can't call it a law firm if it doesn't have more than one person.
Mm-hmm.
So a legal practice. And I get so paralyzed by all the decisions or by what I don't have or the expertise that I don't feel like I have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's so easy to let us stop it's so easy to let that stop me from continuing to push forward. And I love that as a coffee company, y'all started online with a cup. And that wound up being one of your greatest strengths because then COVID hits 2 years later. And for 2 years now, you've been learning how to move coffee, as you say. Sounds like you're trying to move drugs. Move coffee using e commerce. And how you all grew your network kind of organically. You talked at the outset about community, that all five of you really valued community, and that pop-ups are community events. They are when you're boots on the ground inside visiting a community that you may or may not be a part of. And maybe you're an ambassador for your brand, maybe you're an ambassador for your community, and you're getting to interact with people. And I just find that really refreshing to hear, again, as a new entrepreneur, because in my mind, and especially as I'm going through all of the courses and the classes and all the things that are great, all of the resources, but
Mm-hmm.
especially as a Black person, as a Black woman, the direction is get it right when you start.
Mm-hmm.
um, because all of the statistics, such and such small businesses fail, such and such Black small businesses fail, we under earn compared to white businesses, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
um, and so I feel a pressure of like, do it, do it right, have all the ducks in order. um, and not saying that we shouldn't do that. It's just nice to hear about you all's success doing what you could with what you had at the time and continuing to build and grow at a pace that um, was still a challenge to you because it grew so quickly, but that wasn't out of the it didn't take you all out of your element and it didn't move you from what your purpose was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be my number one advice, honestly, to any aspiring entrepreneur is just, go into the mindset like Nipsey said, it's a marathon, and it really is. physically, especially mentally, right?
Mm.
Um, 'Cause you definitely put a lot of time and effort into it, and when things don't like happen when you think they're going to happen, it can mentally set you back, right? And paralyze you. So the ability to kind of fight through those different fears or imposter syndromes, right? Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
all of those different things, but to keep navigating through that. And I say our secret weapon has been the fact that it's five of us. The fact
Yeah.
that we're able to share the load. Then at the same time, we all have strengths and weaknesses and fears, right? For example, I may, Jamie may be more fearful of looking at numbers and being analytical. That's something I strive in, right? And he may be more, he's definitely more um, less fearful in terms of like just jumping out there. Like he'll
Mm.
definitely be like, "Hey, let's turn on the lights and let's go get a coffee maker from Walmart. Who cares, right? We're just gonna serve some coffee." Whereas I'm more like, let's make sure you get it right. Like let's get the right equipment. Let's make this one investment, right? Versus, so we definitely play off of each other, and it has helped us in the long run because it keeps us moving. More importantly, right? We don't get
Yeah.
stuck. So that's one thing that we've had been able to just keep moving as slow or as fast as we need to be.
Mm. So tell me about what the experience was like deciding to start a business. Well, first invest with these friends, these close friends, but then start a business. Because one of the things that we hear a lot, and that I've heard in the Black community around business, is that some folks believe that we shouldn't get into business with our close friends, with our family. Um, and maybe that's not even specific to Black folks, but there is like folks that is a fear that people have. Um, and I wonder what that was like. I mean, were you guys concerned at all about losing your friendships over this?
Yeah, that's definitely always a concern, especially initially, even doing the investment club, right? It's something mentally challenging trying to get over some hurdle where you put your money together, right, and make a joint
Mhm.
decision. And I think a lot of it's based off of fear of what if I don't get my way in this decision, or if I lose out, right? And for us, luckily, we was able to get past that. I think a lot of it came around the fact that we met so frequently, like every 2 weeks or so, and talked about the stock market. But then also we would have check-ins. Like even though we was close friends, I think the fact that we met every 2 weeks and had this like round robin check-in, how you doing, how's the fam, it brought us closer, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, we had to have a kid, yada yada, going through all these different things. You're sharing these sort of moments, right? Together. That definitely helped us with the bond and the trust. And so early on, we was able to get past a lot of those initial fears. With the business, I don't know if we thought we would make it this long, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was an
Just
experiment.
it's an experiment, right? This is coffee. You don't really know what it's going to be like 2 years or a month from now, right? So many things could happen. But we just consistently kept going. And it was very early on because initially, I was in Dayton. I was there with the roaster. And so I was doing all of the shipping. And as orders would come in, I was like, oh, that's cool. We got five this week. Oh, right.
Yeah, I'm still at the point where if I get an inquiry, I'm like, "Yeah."
Yep, yep, yep. It was early on. I got the little website app. Anytime somebody went to
Yeah.
the website, like, oh, we got a
Yeah.
visitor from such and such. Like, oh, all right, super excited. But then I realized, like, man, it's gonna take a lot of coffee to like truly make money, to
Mm.
sell, right? And then another thing is like, it won't like there is no sign of telling you when you need to stop. It's all about you. Whenever you mentally just say, I don't want to do it no more, that's when it stops. And so I was like, okay, you just got to keep going. There's going to be lots of sort of subtle signs like, oh, maybe I can't do this no more. It's getting too hard, or I'm not making money, right? And so you just got to like mentally fight through those sort of mental
Mm.
barriers day in and day out. And again, it's good that we have five of us to kind of keep each other encouraged.
Yeah. And I'm finding for myself that the what you just said about listening to yourself, maybe when to stop, like that's for me a day-to-day thing. Like that's how
Hmm.
I decide, because in entrepreneurship I'm finding that I work so much harder and so much longer hours than when I was working a 9 to 5. um, and it's fun most of the time. It doesn't always feel like work. It's easy to get carried away. um, and sometimes it's 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning. I got a whole family. I got to be up for a meeting in the morning, and there does need to be like something needs to happen within me to say, okay, Whitney, now's the stopping point. Um, Come back at this tomorrow. And so even pushing through in that way, like trying to figure out how not to burn out and how to take this seriously and continue to make progress and to spend the hours that are needed during startup and probably after startup.
Hmm.
Um, okay, I want to ask you about investment and about your company values, but first I want to give people just an image of what Black coffee is like. So because it's really important, and we're going to keep coming back to community, and that is exactly what you feel when you walk into Black Coffee. Black Coffee is in a Black neighborhood in Southeast Atlanta, and I don't even know honestly how I stumbled across Black Coffee. Um, but I did. And the first time I went in, I noticed how beautiful it was. There are plants hanging from the ceiling, there are plants all over the place. There's several like seating options. There are, of course, pastries. And then there's all these products, all of you guys' merchandise, right? That have all of these um, words on them that evoke emotion for Black people, for me, like woke. And there's artwork, there's beautiful artwork. And then there's also like the community announcement space. There's the where everybody puts their business cards. And one of the things that I loved was that it was a whole bunch of Black people. And it was a whole bunch of Black people working, networking, meeting each other, learning about coffee, talking about coffee, drinking their coffee, reading books in the newspaper. Like it just felt like, for me growing up in Seattle, I walked into these spaces all the time, but they were all white spaces with all white stuff, all white art, you know, merchandise that had sayings on it that didn't mean anything to me. And it was fine. It was comfortable. I would do my work there. But there was something about feeling like when I'm walking into Black Coffee, I am literally walking into like a microcosm of a part of the Black community that I love, which is the people that love coffee, the people that love chilling in comfy couches and like working in community, but not like talking to people. Like I want to work by myself, but I want to be around people while I'm working. Um, and so also Black Coffee does a lot within the community. You all host pop-up events within the actual coffee shop. You highlight businesses and entrepreneurs who patronize the business. You all host events there. You cater. Um, so there's a lot of components to Black Coffee. And one of the more unique components that I've noticed is your funding, I don't know, model. And so I would love for you to talk about how Black Coffee has earned funding from and how Black Coffee incorporates community into its business model.
Yeah, that's a great summary. Done way better job than I could have ever done in describing the space. I think very logically, zeros and ones. Um, but in terms of the community aspect, like I said, that was something that we truly was near and dear to all of our hearts. And coffee is just simply that vehicle that we're using to bring the community together, to promote, entrepreneurship, share resources about financial literacy and generational wealth, and then just mostly to empower the community. So those are our three pillars. But it's one thing to kind of say and kind of see the power of coffee, but then to actually like do it and like really like lean into it, right? We always knew coffee brought people together, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. But to actually have the opportunity to integrate a platform in a space has been so empowering to like not just us. This is why we do it, right? This is why we grind and we work crazy hours to make it happen, bend over backwards to make sure everybody has a good experience because we know the power that it has. Our number one customer is by far entrepreneurs. Like it is truly a co-working space as you described,
Mm-hmm.
and we that was important for us. And then again, it's something that we can share with the community. Initially, when you got the coffee shop, I'm thinking drip coffee, espresso, tea, pastries, but we got a chance to listen to the community, right? They say it's a food desert. It's not many healthy food options. So let's go work with other Black entrepreneurs to get some vegan options, some healthy options. Let's create a menu centered around what we like, right? Let's provide healthy food alternatives. Another thing is a place to have like community events, voter registrations, shoe drives, all of these different things the space has been used for. Even on Sundays, we have the local chess team there. Boys use
Oh,
chess. They come every Sunday
nice.
and they play chess. So it's just things that you never foresaw when you open a coffee shop. But the most important thing we did was just listen to the community and just let the space evolve to what it is. So it is truly a reflection of the community. And that's something that we take so much pride into it.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, one day I walked in during maybe round five of the fundraising, which I can only describe as crowdfunding, but then you get money back. I don't know what the technical term is. I don't know nothing about these finances. But talk to us about this because I picked up the thing and that's kind of when I was like, oh yeah, I need to invest. Like I need to be invested in Black coffee in terms of that's when I decided to do my pictures there. That's when I decided because it was clear, it like you were saying, it's one thing to talk about, well, these are our values, blah 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 blah, but it's another thing to do it. And I had never seen a coffee shop that was trying to incorporate the community in that way. That wasn't just like give me money.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, it started as an investment club. So that's like one of our foundational um, principles in terms of like we saw the power of compound interest, we saw the power of investing. How do you teach that without necessarily say do an investment club and do this, right? That's just we know that doesn't work, right?
Yeah,
You need
yeah.
to kind of show it in a different way that's easily digestible. So coffee was sort of that vehicle. You know, before we actually had the coffee shop, we would do these virtual community events and have these talks about finances, about the community. And then the coffee shop came. It's like, okay, we could be outside, we could touch the people. Um, but in terms of the financial model, so initially, like I said, we had past success with the investing. So we had a nest egg, right? In
Mhm,
addition
mhm.
to the sales from online, but that was not enough to put that completely into a coffee shop to renovate it or build it out. And so I'm a big tech person. At the time, I'm looking at these entrepreneurs, how they started Facebook, how they started all these different
Mhm,
companies.
mhm.
And then I just heard about this Silicon Valley. They'll just go have a pitch deck and then they'll go get $1 million. I'm like, where does this world exist, right? This doesn't exist in my world, right? But I was like, you
Mm-mm.
know what? We could try to replicate that for the coffee shop. So we put together a pitch deck and we kind of like said this fund is for the build out of the coffee shop. We knew that the most important thing we want to do is build trust in the community.
Mm.
It's very, people are very sensitive about their money. So what we did for the first round, right? It was like, let's just there's a lot of different investment vehicles that you could offer. You could offer equity, you could offer this and that. It was like most people are familiar with a loan type of agreement. So that's
Mhm.
the way we structured the round one. It was like, well, we'll offer you, I think it was 7% rate of return on your investment, and we'll pay you back starting after a year and spread it out over 12 months. So after 2 years, you get your money back plus the interest, right? So there's a couple of things we wanted to show, to build trust and to show the power of investing and gaining interest, right? And so we went out, put together the pitch deck, pitching, and nobody. And then it wasn't like maybe
Oh,
10.
I
It
wasn't
wasn't.
expecting that. I don't know
No,
why. Of course, nobody. Like,
but
that's always,
yeah,
isn't that always
yeah,
the
because
first try? Like, nothing.
yeah, yeah, it took us a couple iterations because, like I said, at this time it's just literally four walls, right? And we didn't have a track record of operating a coffee shop. We're geographically separated, and we got our first yes. It was like maybe after the 21st pitch of some sort. And my cousin, she was like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And she sent us $1,000. It was like we looked at each other, like, I guess there's no turning back now, right? You got to keep going. You got to
We
check,
at least
right?
got to give her 1,000 plus 7% in 2
Yep, right.
years. So, like,
You got to keep going, right? And so we just kept building off of that, right? And then during COVID, Beyonce the Bay Good had the award, and so we applied for that grant, and then we was able to leverage that. It's like, oh, Beyonce invested in us, like it's our foundation.
yeah.
But that was $10,000, and then from there it was like the snowball effect, right? And I think that round we raised maybe $20,000, and that was just to keep the lights on, start doing the build out, get the counters, um, and then we just kept repeating, right, over time. Um, After that year mark, we started paying back our investors. We paid them off in full, so that's like a milestone checkpoint to show trust. We're moving towards this progress. Had round two. I don't know how much we raised for that one, but then we did round three, round four, round five, and so between round one and five, we raised maybe a little over $115,000 between those five rounds, and then we was able to continuously pay people back, show good track record, being super responsive. When they ask questions,
Yeah.
open lines of communications, um, and then uh, we went to. So we went to do round six. Like, well, let's just go. But we starting to get a lot of traction. The year is now 2022. Oh no, 2023. And it was like, but this time, instead of just doing it like just family and friends, let's put it on a crowdfunding platform. Let's just
Mm.
go through all of the requirements, follow with the SEC and doing
Mm-hmm.
all that documentation. That way, it'll give us a little bit more credibility,
Yeah.
and the people will know that they're protected. But small word story is that this is why this is super truthful. Like when we didn't go through that process, right? People would send us the money faster. But because it's on a
Oh, yeah.
platform and they ask questions, specifically, what's your social? People stopped,
Mm.
right? It's just crazy, right?
The Black
So,
people, we
so
don't want
that
to
was
give them
like
that information.
yep,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So that's a lesson, right? That is a lesson learned, and so for us, it took us like we got to coach them through this process. This is a good thing, right? That is documented, going to, on the SEC site. Um, but it's just a little thing you got to just know about your culture and your people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
uh, and so for round six, we partnered with Seed at the Table, which is a crowdfunding site. It's Black owned.
Right.
We met them at InvestFest in 2023, and we just had a sign out at our vending table, like, "Are you interested in investing?" And he stopped by, the founder, co-founder, and it was like, "You guys should do it on my platform." It was like, "All
Yeah.
right, cool, let's do it." And so we went through all the requirements, launched the campaign. Initially, very slow, like I said. It was like, man, people are not really signing up. And then we started making the calls and started learning why they was getting stuck, right? And so again, coaching them through that, and we closed round six at the end of January 2024 and
Yeah.
raised over $120,000 in that round alone.
Yeah. That's
And
amazing.
we was also blessed to have a $25,000 investment from Operation Hope. So we actually switched the model um, again. So for round six, it's called a revenue share loan. So
Mm.
essentially, we're going to allocate, for our particular case, allocate 10% of our revenue and pay back the investors over time from that 10% of the revenue. That way we found it's actually a pretty good model. For rounds 1 through 5, it was sort of just a term loan, right? You kind of set to
Mm,
that X amount per month, and regardless of your sales, you're still trying to meet that quota or trying to meet that amount to return to investment to the investors. Whereas the revenue share is just based off of the revenue. So it kind of reduces the pressure on the company. If we
right,
do well, investors get their money back faster. But if we're not doing as well, it may take a little bit longer to get your money back. And that way,
right.
it has a built-in incentive for the investors to help us get revenue,
Yeah,
right? Because they'll get their money back faster. So we found that model to be very, very helpful for us. And I would encourage other entrepreneurs to consider that investment, um, I guess, package, because that's something that we just learned about just recently as we put it on the crowdfunding platform. So you're always learning and
well,
always willing to try.
yeah. And that was going to be my next question because for me this is unique. Like, but again, I'm learning about business operations and about funding businesses and capital and all of that. Are you finding other businesses your size who use this type of funding model?
Yes, yes. So it's very popular for like other crowdfunding sites like WeFunder, Seed at the Table, what's the other one? Start Engine. So they offer these sort of um, packages, investment packages to the investors. So it's starting to become more popular because again, the entrepreneurs don't have to necessarily give up equity if they're not ready,
Yeah.
and then it also gives the community a chance to invest. We always when we give the pitch, people may say, "Oh, it's a donation," but we always correct them and say, "This is not a donation. You're getting your money back plus more, right? So this is an
Right.
investment." And so making sure people using the right terminology. But this is not I guess, a Kickstarter or
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
campaign.
Yeah. So what happens when a business fails in
Yeah,
this
that
type of
is
model?
Yeah, yeah, it is a risk, right? I mean, with anything, you definitely cannot get your money back. But there's definitely language in there where, the company will liquidate assets and try their best to pay back the investors. But again,
Mm,
it is with like any business, right? There is that potential that the business can go bankrupt and you lose your money,
right.
100%.
Right. So don't invest more than you can afford.
Always.
Yeah. I I also really appreciate the education component, the financial literacy um, for financial freedom, and that's one of the purposes of my legal practice, Wills for the People, is addressing the racial wealth gap, and I love learning about the various ways that entrepreneurs are going about working within the community. Um, and so yeah, I'm really glad that y'all are around, not only to provide the space but to be an educating voice, and to be a model for others, whether it's individuals who are learning about investing or folks like myself who are interested in starting a business or in the process of starting a business or looking for ways to diversify their funding stream.
hmm Yeah, it is super important. I mean, this outside of just business, whatever you're doing in life, you got to have a good financial um, back understanding, right? No matter how fast you make money, if you don't know how to manage it, is almost pointless, right? So whether your personal um, spending habits or your financial literacy, even carrying on to a business, right? Because you still got to manage the books, right? So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
so it's very critical.
I have so many other questions that keep popping in my mind, but I don't want to take up much more of your time. So I'm going to ask you two more questions. Um, the first question is about your identities as Black men. I don't know if that's how you identify, but y'all look like you're Black men. Um, and going into this space, um, even, I mean, in 2018, even, where there's not a lot of Black men who are entrepreneurs, who are going into a business together, who are going into a business that they don't know nothing about. Um, I'm curious as to how you think that your identities as Black men impacted, either helped or may have hindered or created challenges to your success?
So I'll first start off and say that we're actually driven, supported heavily by Black women, honestly. Um, from our spouses, wives, they've been there since day one. If we look at the demographics of ourselves, and even the customers that come into the coffee shop, it is Black women. So we are
Mm,
forever grateful, even though we're kind of the face of the company, but we're truly supported heavily and loved by the Black women. We wouldn't be where we are, honestly, if it wasn't. Like I said, we're forever grateful. In terms of some of the challenges, uh, as you would imagine, you probably you experience it all, right? Um, in terms of just trying to um, feel comfortable, right? Uh,
mm,
so a reporter asked me for the Atlanta Business Chronicle. This kind of kicked things off for 2024 was that article. But he asked me after because he was interested. He initially reached out because of the crowdfunding campaign, and I was just telling him a story about the rounds of funding we raised, and he was like, "Why didn't you guys just go to a bank and get a loan?" He was like,
mhm.
at the time, we didn't know that was a thing, and like
Mm.
honestly, like even when we first opened up our first bank account, I felt like not comfortable walking into that bank, even though I had like all the paperwork. So it's just a lot of mental things that we may face. Um, Luckily, like we was able to get past that. So I could only imagine what some of my other peers, or brothers and
Yeah.
sisters fear, like starting a business because they ask you all the time, even applying for grants. Do you have a bank account? Have you filed your taxes? There's just so many of these different things that we mentally are have these barriers to like even asking for help. And like we may feel timid just going to the bank and say, I want to open up a business account. We're scared that they may not take us seriously, right? So it's just a lot of little things that we've mentally had to go through. And like, I could tell you honestly, like when I first opened up that bank account, I was initially like scared, like, oh, I have everything. I have the EIN. I have a
Right,
driver's
right.
license. Right? I'm not a criminal.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a different world. I'll say when I went to I needed to open an IOLTA account, which is a trust account that attorneys need to have
Hmm.
to hold client money in until we earn it. Um, and I also wanted a line of credit. And I did my application, and it was approved right away. Um, and I went back into the office with the woman who was working with me, a Black young woman, and she was like, kind of whispering, like, "How much was it approved for?" You know? And I'm like, "Oh, 20,000." And she's like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, 20,000." She's like, "Not many people get approved for $20,000
Hmm.
out the gate." And she didn't say Black women or Black people or young people or anything like that. But, I was at a bank in a Black community because I live in a Black community. And
Hmm.
it struck me, I'm just thinking about what about my profile? Like, what about me made this like automatic, it was literally 30 seconds of like
Hmm.
the algorithm, the computer doing its calculations, and then I guess determining that I'm trustable up to
Hmm.
$20,000 for this random business that doesn't exist. It
Hmm.
exists on paper, um, and so yeah, and we hear a lot about how difficult it can be to raise capital to get
Yep.
the funding to start a business for folks of color. Okay, my final question. What, and you mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to ask again in case you have a different answer.
Hmm.
What is your advice to entrepreneurs who are, within their first couple of years of their business ownership?
Yeah, so I actually wrote down a response. So one of the things I think is truly important, if all possible, have a co-founder, at least one other co-founder,
Mm,
um, because it's mentally, physically, spiritually, all of the above, taxing to carry that load by yourself. Um, Again, that has been our secret weapon, the fact that it's five of us, right? I can't even imagine trying to do this all on my own. And then again, trying to like explain to family members that you're doing this and why you're doing this and doing the social media, doing this. Like it's just too much. So if you can find a co-founder, at least one other person, at least,
Yeah.
right? Just to carry the load, somebody that's in line where you would like to take the company. Secondly, start early and often, similar to like investing in terms of building community.
Mm.
Um, from day one, we've been truly blessed by our network. Um, they've showed so much love, from investing into the coffee company, like dollar values, um, but not just dollars, but just their time and their expertise and contributing to our virtual community at the time. And then this offer encouragement by supporting, even though they may not even drink coffee.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
and then another thing I would say is just be consistent as much as you
Mm.
can. It's mentally draining to doing day in and day out, but that consistency will pay off. I honestly feel like things are just starting to happen to us this year. That's been because we've been pulling, like just
Yeah.
consistently trying to build on top of it. Last year was tough financially before we did the fundraising, just because we was expanding and we needed to spend money on like capital expenditures. Um, and so, if you have a nest egg or have access to a line of credit, please get that as well. Because like just like last year, we was able to pull from that actual fund that we invested in because we needed more capital. And I actually like wrote a blog post about it on our website, like the importance of having
Mm.
reserves or access to capital because of these moments, right? Because you have these spikes, like we saw the spike in COVID and sales, and then with the all of the George Floyd, lots of money was coming towards us, but that didn't
Mm.
sustain. And then you saw like 2022, early 23, somewhat like a pseudo recession, or it wasn't as much liquidity in terms of money, right, being thrown out,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
because you're just black or whatever. So it's like, oh, you got to tighten that up right, in terms of being efficient. And so being able to go through these cycles of the market of the economy and being able to survive. So like the importance of having like backup money is super important as well. Um, and most importantly, I think customer service, like that's
Mm.
been our thing. Like you see it in a coffee shop, we go above and beyond. Sometimes it don't make financial sense, but we have to do it, right? We have to
I
do it.
always love that people be bringing my coffee to me. I'm like,
Yep,
okay, I don't
yep,
even have to get
yep,
up out my comfy little seat.
yep. Yep. You have to take care of the customer because it's all about that experience, honestly, right?
Hmm.
Whether it's a coffee shop or just even a service space, right? You just have to treat people kind and be respectful. And we've been lucky that we've been able to hire such a great team that they take that seriously for us. So
Oh
those would
yeah,
be
ain't
my
nobody slipping.
yeah. So that'll be my words of advice. That's been like the lessons I've learned in terms of things that's helped us grow, right? It's
Yeah.
those things. You look at the reviews and like customer service is a top keyword. Survive, light skin Keisha, of course. I didn't even get a chance to talk about the coffee, but
Right, because I had all sorts of questions about the coffee itself, but
yep,
that'll be for another conversation.
yep. We can save that one, but for the most part, definitely come 1800 Jonesboro Road, um,
Thank
Southeast, Atlanta, Georgia, 30315. Black Coffee, Atlanta. Definitely stop by if you're in the A, about 15 minutes north of the airport. So um, it's been a
That's right.
pleasure. Um,
Thank you. And what's your, let's see, give us the website and the Instagram.
yeah, the website is theblackcoffeecompany.com, just spelled out THE, blackcoffeecompany.com. Our Instagram is at BLK Coffee Co. BLKCOFFEECO. And same for X and Facebook as well. So
Thank
Definitely
you.
reach out, show some love, and definitely appreciate the opportunity to share the story. And next time we'll definitely probably do a deep dive into the coffee, right? And its
Yes.
origin.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining me for this conversation. I hope that you got as much out of it as I did. Feel free to continue the conversation with us over on Facebook at the Impostrix Podcast Validating Space. We welcome all, and it's a space for us to validate each other as we work through work, race, and imposter syndrome. You can find out more about me or about the podcast at www.impostrixpodcast.com. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Impostrix Podcast. Until next time, be validated.